This video is sponsored by Connell Guides. To get your hands on the most intelligent study guides on the market for GCSE and A-level English literature, as well as GCSE and A-level history, visit connellguides.com and use code RS15 at checkout for 15% off your order.
What happens in Act 3, Scene 5 of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet? Let's find out. How's it going, Revision Squad? DystopiaJunkie here with another GCSE English Literature video for you. In this one, we are going to annotate part of Act 3, Scene 5 of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, which I have nicknamed the Marriage Rejection, given that this extract centres on how Juliet's parents react to her refusing to marry Paris. So as I annotate this scene, I will focus on how it helps to create certain impressions about the play's characters, how it relates to the play's themes, and how it formally works as a piece of drama. As with my other annotation videos, I strongly recommend that you have a copy of the play in front of you, at least 3 different highlighters, and a pen to make notes with. This will be the penultimate annotation video that I will be making for Romeo and Juliet. If it helps you out, please do let me know. You could drop this video a like, leave a comment on it for me to read, share it around with anybody else who might benefit from watching it, and you could also subscribe to my channel too if you haven't done so already. Okay then, let's get stuck into annotating that scene. So as I said in the video introduction, I'm going to be making annotations that relate to the play's characters, themes and form. In these annotation videos, when I say form, I mean how this extract functions as a piece of drama. That means I will focus on the extract's relation to the overall structure of the play, whether it uses any dramatic devices, what audience responses might be to it, and so on. Moreover, some annotations might relate to more than one category, so if you see something that is shaded both blue and green, for example, that's a hint that its comment is about how the extract relates to the play's characters and its themes. So, in this video we are going to focus on the middle part of Act 3, Scene 5. The section that begins after Romeo leaves Juliet's bedroom and ends with Lord Capulet's ultimatum to Juliet: marry Paris or I will disown you. Before we get to that though, Juliet and Lady Capulet have a conversation first. Now Juliet is visibly distressed at this point in the play. We know that it's because she's upset about being separated from Romeo, who is newly banished, but her parents do not know this. This is what prompts Lady Capulet to question if Juliet is evermore weeping Tybalt's death, a word that means still or always. Because Lady Capulet is incredulous that Juliet is upset about Tybalt's death, we get the impression that she is not a sympathetic character because she is dismissive of her daughter's sadness. Now this unsympathetic characterisation of Lady Capulet is then reinforced by how she mocks Juliet's sadness by using hyperbole, in which she suggests that Juliet is crying so much that she will flood Tybalt's grave. And last, by referring to Romeo as a villain, we see that Lady Capulet has a strong sense of family loyalty, given that this term bears negative connotations. The conversation pivots away from Juliet's sadness and instead focuses on Romeo. Now Juliet's aside, in which she expresses that she thinks Romeo is antithetical to villainhood, reveals that she is withholding her true feelings from her mother, thus suggesting that Juliet is distancing herself from her. Now when Juliet actually does speak to her mother, rather than the audience, she uses equivocal or ambiguous language, which further demonstrates that she is withholding her true feelings from her mother. Moreover, because Juliet is able to use this sort of rhetorical trickery to evade telling her mother her true feelings, it could suggest that Juliet is her mother's intellectual superior, thus affording her a sense of authority in this scene. Next, Lady Capulet's euphemistic language, in which she avoids explicitly mentioning an assassin, poison or Romeo's death, reveals that she is in fact a violent character, albeit indirectly, given that she will not actually be killing Romeo herself. Last, Juliet's dialogue at the bottom of this short extract contains a double meaning, something that is achieved by the pauses around the word dead. These two pauses mean that Juliet's dialogue can be interpreted as dead being the last word of her first sentence or the first word of her second sentence. I never shall be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him dead. Is my poor heart for a kinsman vexed? Versus, I never shall be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him. Dead is my poor heart for a kinsman vexed. One interpretation sees Juliet echo her mother's sentiments, whereas the second sees her express that she won't be happy again until she sees Romeo once more. As such, these double meanings highlight Juliet's intelligence because she is able to express her true feelings while also saying what she thinks her mother wants her to say. The conversation about Romeo continues, and Juliet eventually reveals her true feelings. Before that though, Juliet's use of politeness markers, as seen in beseech and ladyship, could imply that her obedience is performative at this point in the play, given that we know that Juliet has already chosen Romeo over her own family. When Lady Capulet expresses that Lord Capulet's arrangement of Juliet's wedding with Paris next Thursday was something that Juliet did not expect, nor something that Lady Capulet sought after, Shakespeare evokes the largely patriarchal nature of Elizabethan England, especially with regards to upper-class families and marriages, given that fathers tended to broker their daughters' marriages without consulting them. Now, when Lady Capulet describes Paris, she uses a list of 3 positive adjectives that not only reveal that Paris is a catch, but that Lady Capulet thinks he is a catch as well. As with elsewhere in the play, it seems that Lady Capulet certainly approves of Paris as her potential son-in-law. But then comes Juliet's rejection of this arrangement. She uses strong modal verbs, shall and will, in conjunction with not, which afford her a sense of authority and maturity because she is making her own choices in life. Moreover, Juliet's increasing maturity is evident in how she questions her father's authority when she brings the haste of the arrangement into doubt. Rather than obediently accepting her father's decision, she makes it seem foolish or ill thought out. After that bombshell, Lord Capulet enters the scene. Now, his dialogue initially echoes his wife's, given that he also asks if Juliet is ever more showering, with showering here referring to her crying. Much like his wife, this suggests that Lord Capulet is also an unsympathetic character. Indeed, this impression is evident elsewhere in his opening stretch of dialogue, for Lord Capulet uses an extended metaphor in which he compares Juliet to a little boat lost at the sea formed by her tears, in order to mock her. Lord Capulet is clearly then not a very kind father. Last, Lady Capulet associates family disloyalty with death when she expresses that she wishes that Juliet was married to her grave. Not only does this highlight the importance of family loyalty, it foreshadows the play's conclusion, given that Juliet is reunited with her husband in the Capulet's tomb that then becomes her grave. So at the end of the previous mini-extract, Lady Capulet tells Lord Capulet that Juliet is refusing to marry Paris. His reaction to this news dominates the rest of the scene. To begin, Lord Capulet is confused by this news, as is evidenced by his repeated questions. Now, his confusion is particularly triggered by Juliet's subversion of gender norms, for by refusing to marry the man that her parents, mostly her father, have obtained for her, she is behaving in a way that is atypical for upper-class daughters in Shakespeare's time. Now, in Juliet's dialogue, she repeats that she is thankful. By repeating this politeness marker, she attempts to soften her disobedience, suggesting that although she has not accepted her father's choice of husband, Juliet still respects her dad. In Lord Capulet's subsequent dialogue, fricative alliteration, which is a repetition of sounds including the F, TH, S and X sounds, affords it a forceful, sinister quality. Much like his wife, Lord Capulet associates family disloyalty with death. This is because a hurdle was a sort of rudimentary sled used to drag traitors to their execution, and so by asserting that he will drag Juliet to her wedding on a hurdle, Lord Capulet implies that she is a traitor who, in her ostensible treachery, may as well be dead to him. Last, Lord Capulet's misogynistic insults evoke the largely patriarchal nature of Elizabethan England. Green sickness carrion sees him insult his daughter by calling her a virgin, given that the green sickness was a type of anemia thought only to affect young virginal women in Elizabethan England. Now this is then contradicted by how he then calls Juliet baggage, which was another word for prostitute in Shakespeare's time. As if insulting Juliet based on her lack of or excess of sexual activity isn't enough, Lord Capulet then also objectifies his daughter when he calls her a tallow face, an insult that sees him suggest that she has yellowish waxy skin, a comment that amounts to him calling his daughter ugly. Now after Lord Capulet's brutal verbal assault of Juliet, she falls to her knees and asks him to listen to her. Now the tension between Juliet's actions, her falling to her knees and begging, which is an act of inferiority, and her dialogue, commanding her father to hear her with patience, which is an act of superiority, is indicative of the inner conflict that Juliet feels. She is torn, it seems, between being an obedient, respectful daughter and being an independent young woman who acts on her own desires and wishes. Lord Capulet, though, does not listen. He continues to insult Juliet. His feelings of rage are evidenced by the caesura apparent in his dialogue, for they suggest that he is so enraged that he is unable to speak fluently. Moreover, Lord Capulet's use of triadic structure in "speak not, reply not, do not answer me" sees him deny Juliet her voice, thus asserting himself as the ultimate authority figure in the relationship dynamic they share. Last, the implied threat of violence made when Lord Capulet comments, "my fingers itch," which sees him allude to slapping or beating someone, sees him exert and reinforce his power and authority through a physical act. At that threat, Juliet's nurse interrupts. Her interjection demonstrates that her love for Juliet overpowers her respect for her employer's authority, thus revealing where her true loyalties lie. Lord Capulet does not seem to care about what the nurse has to say though, for his often misogynistic dismissal of her, given that gossip was a female-coded insult in Shakespeare's time, sees him attempt to exert his authority as a male figure. Interestingly, when Lady Capulet asserts that Lord Capulet is too hot, she's not commenting on how beautiful he is, but instead is commenting on his foul temper. It sees her express disapproval at his behaviour and imply that he has gone too far in his rage, which might suggest that between them, Lady Capulet is the voice of reason. And yet even this does not seem to appease Lord Capulet, for he asserts that it makes him mad. The ambiguous "it" may bring the audience to question what specifically it was that has enraged Lord Capulet. Now of course we know that his rage is because Juliet will not marry Paris, but Lord Capulet's subsequent dialogue provides more specific details about why this has annoyed him. Lord Capulet suggests that Paris is high status, wealthy, young, educated and attractive, all of which means that Lord Capulet has in fact done a pretty good job as a high status Elizabethan father. He has not just arranged to marry Juliet off to any old bloke, but to someone who is actually quite a catch, which makes Juliet's refusal all the more disrespectful. Moreover, given that masculinity for upper-class men was intrinsically connected to a man's ability to marry off his daughter, Juliet's refusal to marry Paris actually threatens her father's masculinity, which may be another reason why Lord Capulet is so outraged. He has not only been completely disrespected, in his opinion, but his identity has also been imperilled. And finally, Lord Capulet provides Juliet with an ultimatum: marry Paris or I will disown you. This marks a negative subversion of Elizabethan marriage conventions, for a woman would typically leave her family behind to join her husband's family. Lord Capulet, it seems, is done with Juliet either way. She either leaves the Capulet family by joining Paris's family, or because of her perceived disobedience and disrespect. She will be removed from the Capulet family and left on her own without her parents to rely on. And that is where we are going to finish annotating. With a little over 30 notes made, I hope that you now have a clearer understanding of how Act 3 Scene 5 creates certain impressions about Romeo and Juliet's characters and themes, and how it works formally as a piece of drama. If I have managed to help you out, please do let me know. You could drop this video a like, leave a comment on it, share it around, and you could of course subscribe to my channel too if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have an awesome rest of the day. If you are studying or revising, please remember to take frequent short breaks, as a burned out student is not a happy or successful student, which is what I think you deserve to be.
So what does happen in Act 3 Scene 5? Well, between Lady Capulet's unsympathetic characterisation, Juliet's refusal to marry Paris, and Lord Capulet's absolutely furious ultimatum to his daughter, we could say that Act 3 Scene 5 of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet contains an awful lot of family drama.